Thursday Night Tailgate, where the spotlight is always on the positive. Tune in Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time to hear your favorite NFL legends, players, and coaches sharing their stories. Now back to Chris and Bob.
I wouldn't joke about anything else that happens here tonight.
All right, now back with us and making his 7th appearance on the show is former Rangers, Yankees, and Braves outfielder Billy Sample. Let me remind you about Billy's background. He's from Roanoke, Virginia, played in the major leagues from 1978 to 1986, singled on the very first major league pitch he saw back in '78. His best season was 1983 when he was 5th in the American League in stolen bases, batted .274 with a .331 on-base percentage and a .732 OPS. He was the 10th toughest player to strike out that season in Major League Baseball, and he was third in fielding percentages amongst left fielders. Billy played in 326 games, had just under 2,800 plate appearances, 46 home runs, 230 RBIs, a career batting average of .272, and he stole 98 bases. Billy is also a screenplay writer and a producer, and his movie Reunion 108, which is a satirical comedy with a baseball backdrop, is available on DVD and for download through Amazon or on the movie's IMDb page. Billy's also written a book, A Year in Pinstripes and Then Some, about the one season he played with the New York Yankees, which is also available on Amazon.com. And oh, by the way, it's 5-star rated. He's been doing stand-up comedy because he's just that talented, and we're excited that he is back with us again tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Billy, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Billy. Chris, thank you very much for that read-in. That's exceptional. I feel like I want to meet that guy. Hey, Bob.
How are you, Billy?
And the Bills throw more to their running backs than any other team, percentage-wise. So having a big possession wide receiver, will they be able to stretch the field enough to match up well against New England? I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah. No, I don't. I don't think they can compare with New England. But I think they are for real, Billy. I think this is the first time, and our good friends Christine Lisi from ESPN and our good friend Angelo Kane, two big Buffalo Bills fans, I think are very excited that they got Benjamin and that they at least are making a run at being competitive for the first time in many years. I don't think they can compete with the Patriots, but they play each other one more time. We'll find out. But I do think that this Bills team is going in the right direction. They're going to be tough to beat. Their defense is pretty good. We'll see what they can do against the Jets tonight.
Yeah, wild card contending, I would imagine.
There you go. But So Billy, catch us up, man. What's been going on with you?
I've got nothing. But thank you for having me on anyway. I'm doing pretty much the same, Chris. And selling books and writing. I'm going to have my second edition coming out in February, so I'm working on that. And I don't know, just living, trying to stay in shape. Enjoy watching all the sports. Thank goodness for a remote controller. Either you guys old enough to remember having to turn the TV? Oh my goodness, how did I ever watch TV that way? Because now I just sit back and just enjoy. And I'm so impressed with the talent all around. I think it's a little easier now to have great baseball games because the ball's a little bit harder and the park's a little smaller, so it enhances comebacks. And yet, I still marvel at the plays that these youngsters make, and I'm so happy to see it. And they seem to be really happy to make those plays. I was looking at Peterson the other night after hitting a home run, and I think he hit a couple of home runs in the series, at least two. And I would have had pitchers that would have had tears in their eyes watching him dance around third base. From third base to home and pointing at everybody. They would have had tears in their eyes waiting for his next at-bat.
Very true.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, they would have buried a 93, 94, 95, 96 right in his ribs. But it's a different game now, and it's a more offensive game, so the offense is protected more. And I understand that. There's a greater correlation between offense and revenue. So you do whatever you can to enhance the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. So, give us your thoughts on the World Series. It was, for the last game, last night, the Game 7 wasn't as, it was kind of anticlimactic. It wasn't as, interesting as probably, some of the other games. But all in all, it seemed like a fantastic World Series between those two clubs. What were your thoughts? How do you feel about what we saw?
Well, Chris, I thought if if Game 7 had been better or more competitive, that it would have matched the 1975 World Series, which I think was the best in my generation, the Red Sox and the Reds. And the only difference between those two teams was a soft single to center by Joe Morgan in Game 7, and that was the difference. They were just so equally matched and went back and forth. For a league championship series, back in the day when it was 5 games, the 1980 Astros and Phillies, I was watching that game and I thought, I'm in the same profession as these guys. I need to go back and work, because they made plays and there was so much drama and so much clutch hitting, and did they ever get Terry Poole out? My goodness, he was so clutch. And I thought that was really a series that just made me sit back and become a fan and forget that I was really in the same profession.
Bob, questions for Billy?
Billy, you had a very good indoctrination into the major leagues. As Chris said, your first at bat, you had a base hit in the 7 for 15, that abbreviated time you spent in 78 in Texas. Billy, I just want to know, what was your expectations going into 79? Pat Corrales becoming the manager. Did you think you had a good shot at playing every day? Bring me back to that second year of the majors.
Thanks, Bob. I came up, it was one of those flights where we were leaving Tucson, where we played AAA, and flew from Tucson to Phoenix, Phoenix to Chicago, Chicago to Milwaukee, where we met the club there, and the club was 5.5 games out at the time. And I walk into the dugout, and there's a lineup card up, and it said sample 4, and I was leading off. And I thought, okay, I figured I was going to play some, but I didn't know I was going to play immediately. But that wasn't too bad. But the sample 4, the 4 part bothered me a little bit, because I didn't even have a second baseman's glove. I burned that thing. I think I still have the Texas League record for most errors by second baseman. So they figured my bat would precede my glove to the majors. Plus, we had bump wheels in the majors anyways. I wasn't going to unseat bump. And nobody said anything about it. I remember Doc Ellis saying, "Good luck, young man." I'm like, oh, it's real. I thought for a minute it was just a fake lineup. So I do my workouts. Richie Zisk comes up to me before, maybe about 15 minutes before the game, where we're running and stretching, and says it's just like AAA, which I thought was really a nice avuncular thing to do, because he was just trying to make sure my nerves were calm. And maybe about 5 minutes before game time, Billy Hunter, the manager, called me over, and he said, well, they wanted to give Bump Wills, the switch-hitting second baseman, one less at bat from his right side, because they thought he was struggling a little bit from the right side. So I was to go in, I was going to hit, and no matter what I did, Bump was going to play defense. So first pitch, Jerry Augustine, low outside sinker. I lined it to right center. Sixto Lascano dove. It went off his glove. I'm on first base with this big, cheesy grin on my face. I couldn't stop grinning, and then here's Bump to come pinch run for me. Day's over. I have no idea what Bob Uecker thought was going on at that time. Maybe he felt that I pulled a hamstring on my way from home to first. So later on in the season, I'm getting a couple of hits along the way, and we're finishing up our road season in Seattle. Next to the last game, after the game, we're getting on the bus, and Billy Hunter pats the seat beside him. He's in the manager's seat, which is usually diagonally across from the bus driver. So he tells me what he thinks the following year is going to look like. Sundberg's obviously going to be the catcher, and whoever else he had, Bump was going to play second base. And it was before the trade for Buddy Bell, so I'm not sure how he went through the whole lineup. But he said that John Grubb and I were going to platoon in left field. And I thought, well, this is nice. I have nothing really left to prove in AAA, so I was excited about it for a manager to have impressed a manager in such a short amount of time that he's already penciled you in the lineup, albeit in a platoon situation, but in the lineup for the following year. The next day they fired Billy Hunter. You got to be kidding me. So that's the kind of timing I've had in my life. But other than that, oh, jeez. And I had a pretty good rookie season. I made the Topps All-Rookie team, and as did my teammate Pat Putnam, who played first base for the most part the following year, the 1979 year. And it was kind of up and down. But I look back, and it seems like the older I get, the better I was, sort of. I guess a lot of us in that situation. But every once in a while I think, geez, I didn't know I was sixth in the league in power speed numbers. Did they have that when I was playing? It would have been nice to have known some of that stuff. I was really starting to take – I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Billy. Finish.
No. in my 1981 season, I got off to a really good start, and I was leading the league. I was tied for the Major League and leading the league in doubles. I had 9 at the time that I dove after a ball, rolled on my wrist, I caught the ball, and broke my ulnar styloid bone on my wrist, the only time I'd been on the DL. And that was, again, my great timing. I was leading the league in doubles, finally doing something that you could feel good about. The team was playing well, and that was the labor and pass year, so we missed 50 games out of it anyway, or 50 days out of it. But I was really starting to finally get over the hump, and something like that happened. The light stanchions in those minor league ballparks converted to major league parks like Arlington, and I think Memorial Stadium in Baltimore was another one of those where every line drive went through the lights. It just, so sometimes you didn't want to get too good of a jump because you'd run right into a bank of lights. And that was what happened on that play. I had to wait so long for the ball to come out of the lights that by the time I dove, my hand was too close to the ground and my weight fell on it. Am I bringing you guys down yet?
Billy, I wanted to ask you one more thing about how the game has changed. You stole 44 bases in '83. That would have easily led the American League this past season. And the amount of stolen bases, Billy, has gone down astronomically. And I know it's a power game and you don't get money for stealing bases and everything, but are you surprised that it's gone that much down? Is there not a market for a guy that can steal maybe 7 or 80 bases anymore?
I don't know, Bob. That's a good question. I was talking to Brian Hunter one time, the speedy Brian Hunter, and he stole 44 one year, and that led the league, just alluding to what you're talking about. I don't think so. And 44 was a distant fifth. Ricky was stealing over 100, so by the time you went Ricky,
True.
Willie Wilson, Julio Cruz, and whoever else, it was just increments of about 20 all the way down. Not as much, because if it's easier to hit the long ball. One of the things that I've noticed is that you have a lot more home runs and fewer RBIs from the guys, which indicates to me that the home run's a little easier to hit nowadays, or they're hitting more home runs nowadays. I don't want to sound like I'm a jealous guy who didn't make any money and and the ball wasn't quite as light, but I guess the game has changed. Whether or not there's room for, I don't think there's room for as many people who can steal bases, but yeah, you still have to steal a base every once in a while. I think there's some people will steal 40, 50, 60.
And Billy, I want to take you back, Bob, talking about 1983. May 11th, 1983, you're with the Rangers, and you guys are playing a game against the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. Ron Guidry is on the mound for the Yankees, and that year he would go 21-9. But in that game, you go 4 for 5, you steal 3 bases, maybe off the best pitcher in the game at the time. You guys win the game 3-1. What do you remember about that night?
I remember that Rich Donnelly, our first base coach, picked up something in Guidry's delivery, and he would just say, "Go." And thank goodness he did, because I didn't pick it up. I have to give Rich all the credit for that. He was my AAA manager as well, and in the big leagues he was also a third base manager and third base coach, along with Jim Leland with the Marlins. And there was a really, really poignant story about Rich and his daughter Amy, who died of young daughter Amy, who died of cancer, and talking about the final run of the Cleveland Marlins series in Game 7. You may be able to Google it, some of the folks out there, but I remember that more than anything else. And I remember getting interviewed after the game. Just little stuff like that, because back then they used to give out some gifts. I mean, usually give the gifts to somebody else, because they give you a gift to somebody's steakhouse and you're not going to be around to eat anyway. But I remember the bases and Rich Donnelly picking up something in the delivery and just getting good jumps like that. I remember also during that season, Wayne Tollison and I were on base. He was on second and I was on first, and T took off for third, and I followed him up, and it was a double steal. And I thanked Wayne for that, because it seemed like it got me going. And after that, I think I stole 25 out of the first 27 or something like that. I slowed up a little bit in the second half, but I ended up with 44 out of 52 that year. But Wayne and I would talk about it was good to have somebody who could steal bases with you. And we had other speed guys. George Wright was there; he had real good speed. But Wayne and I were the base stealers, and to have somebody that you can say, okay, what are we looking for here? Boom, 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 this and that, and take off in unison. Sometimes that was really good to have. And Guidry,
you stole more bases. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Jim. Was that Jim? I started to say that Guidry remembers me hitting a line drive by his ear, and I don't remember it. But it's kind of nice for one of the game's greats to look at you and go,
yeah. Billy, you stole more bases against the White Sox than any other team. Is that just a coincidence, or was there something about playing, whether it was against them or in Comiskey Park, that you really liked?
Bob, I tell you something. It was fun to run off Fisk because Carlton would not call, like a lot of catchers. I'm not saying they were Bane going into the Hall of Fame, but they would catch, they would call for just fastballs. So when I was on first, Carlton would call fastball. He'd never call anything breaking. Fastball away. Okay, if it was a ball, then he would try to bring it in closer to the plate. And if it was a strike, he would go out further. And I would just sort of wait for the count, and he didn't throw me out anyway. But I noticed that he was going to give himself every opportunity to throw me out. Mike Heath, oh my goodness, Mike Heath and I came up together, and Mike threw me out one time in instructional ball so badly I didn't have to slide, and he had a gun, and so I would, and every stolen base was bang bang when he was behind the plate. And so my next at bat, often Mike would ask, "Did you get a good jump, Billy?" "Oh yeah, Mike." Whether I got a good jump or not, it was going to be a great jump. "Oh, Mike, that was great. I had 4 steps before you even had the ball." You had no chance. Bang bang every play down there because I didn't want to give him any more incentive to throw me out and embarrass me like he did in instructional ball a few years before.
So, Billy, before we let you go, let our listeners know, where you're going to be, how can they see you, are you going to be out performing somewhere, and how they can get a copy of your book and books as well.
Oh, thanks. Well, actually, I'm in another book, too. You guys are so nice to let me come on and talk about my high school football career. And there's a book out about my 1971 team. For those of you who don't know, in the movie Remember the Titans, in the state finals, they played us, Andrew Lewis High School in Salem, Virginia. In the movie, they had them play Marshall, one of their district teams, because no matter how hard you try, you really can't Hollywood up a 27-0 score. And they beat us like we stole something from them. And we're both undefeated going into the final games that year. And I try to rationalize and say, well, if we had won the game, they couldn't have made the movie. So that's how I rationalize 46 years later. But there's a book out now, The Team the Titans Remember, by Mark O'Connell. And it's about the history of, I guess, leading up to the game of Andrew Lewis high school football. And we really did have a sort of a legacy of great football. One of the small towns, well, I guess it's sort of a big town, in Southwest Virginia, and just the history that we had leading up to that game. And they keep having anniversaries of it. I don't know how we get so much pub for a team that loses, but they had a reunion of the game last year, and 6 of their players came down, including Herman Boone, the coach that Denzel Washington played in the movie. So that was really nice of them to do that. But we've made a lot out of that. They've made a cottage industry out of motivational speaking after that movie, and we just sort of pat ourselves on the back. It seems like I was the only player that had a bad game that game. All my other teammates said they had a pretty good game, and so I guess the 27-0's on me. It kind of nullifies everything I did in the big leagues.
That's fantastic, Billy. It's always so much fun having you as part of the show. Thank you for your time tonight, coming back on. We hope you'll do it again real soon because, like I said, it's always so much fun for Bob and I to get to spend time with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you and Bob, and I certainly appreciate it. Any time that you'll allow me to sit here and talk about nothing and get a laugh or two, I appreciate it. Thank you. I'll work it into my stand-up routine.
There you go.
Thanks, Chris.
Excellent.
All right, take care, Billy. All the best to
See
you
you,
and
Billy.
your family.
You too. All right, Bob. Yeah. All right. Thanks.
That is former Rangers, Yankees, and Braves outfielder Billy Sample, and no one makes us have more fun. Let me put it that way, Bob, than the time we get to spend with Billy.
Yeah, he is, and I've said in the past, Chris, we didn't bring it up too much, but one of the best color commentators I've ever seen on TV. You know, people forget when he was doing Brave games back in the day, and we'll talk more about him in the future, but he is terrific.
Yes, he is. All right, we've got our next guest, Tony Collins, hanging on the line. We'll get to Tony on the other side of this station break.